evening and welcome to ThaiPBS English News Service. I'm Subhajon Klinsawan. Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra assigned the Industry Minister to examine the damage to and inspect the operations of every factory in Maptaput Industrial Estate after a major chemical explosion occurred at a petrochemical factory there on Saturday, which killed 12 people. Until now, at least 800 people remain evacuated from their homes in Rayong province following the explosion and chemical leakage. Local authorities and people in the area all agree that the dissemination of information about the emergency to the public was totally inadequate in terms of speed and accuracy. For as long as 4 hours after the explosion and leak at the Aditya Birla Chemical, many residents living in the vicinity of the plant did not hear a warning siren during that time. Hundreds of people were working within the industrial estate and dozens more in the nearby communities were rushed to a hospital, some cases entering the ICU. It was at least 6 hours before a representative of the company started talking to the press and admitting to the residents that they did not know that locals were being affected and being evacuated. Following the toluene and chlorine explosions on Saturday, local rescue units had to remain in front of the factory's gate and transport the sick and dead to hospitals. Maptaput Local Administration Vice President Thawatchai Buaji and Ithi Jamjang, who is the Nong Fab community leader, claim the factory management is lying, and this is not the first time people in the industrial estates have tried to cover up their mistakes. Mom Rachawong Pongsawat Swadiwat, the industry minister and the governor of Rayong province have jointly inspected the Aditya Birla Chemical Company where the explosion occurred. He indicated that the chemical explosion was in the production zone for hydrochloric acid and hypochlorite, and despite the area having been cleaned up, the scent of the chemicals is still spreading through the area. 12 people died in the incident, hundreds were injured, and dozens more living in the surrounding areas were sickened by the leaking chemicals. The minister has also assigned the local authorities to implement a warning system and reminded the officers to prevent any factory in Maptaput area from operating in such a way that might present the possibility of another explosion. The Industrial Estate Authority of Thailand is reported to have suspended all operations at the chemical plant where the explosion occurred until an investigation is completed. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister has ordered the authorities to pay the medical treatment fees for victims of the explosion and assigned the Industry Ministry to assess the possibility of potential chemical explosions at every factory in the Maptaput Industrial Estate. She also asked the factories to increase safety measures by conducting an inspection and repairs every 3 months. This practice will, from now on, be a requirement in approving a factory license. The Director of Disease and in the Work Environment Department claimed that toluene and chlorine will not lead to cancer, but if people inhale them in excessive amount, the chemicals could damage the membranes of the lungs. He also suggested that the locals avoid consuming rainwater and use a handkerchief to cover their nose and mouth when going outside the home. The Saturday explosion killed 12 people. For their staff, the company will pay out 36 times the deceased's salary to family members, plus an extra 1 million baht compensation to each, while the families of construction workers who died at the scene will receive 500,000 baht each. The damage caused by the explosion is examined at approximately 1.5 to 1.7 billion baht. Debate is heating up surrounding the Commerce Ministry's projected inflation figures. In the latest update, the Permanent Secretary at the Commerce Ministry launched a counter-attack on a Democrat Party spokesperson, challenging the latter to provide evidence supporting his claim that the ministry has distorted the calculation. The Permanent Secretary also demanded the leader of the Democrat Party to vet his spokesperson's information before making it public, while placing his title on the line if the Commerce Ministry did indeed falsify the inflation rate. Yan Yongpong-ra, Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Commerce, reaffirmed the veracity of the ministry's inflation figure at the month of April. The Permanent Secretary assured the public that the comparison of commodity prices, which was part of the calculation, was in line with the economic standards and that the ministry derived commodity prices from the National Statistical Office. Furthermore, He said that there was no government intervention and even placed his position as the permanent secretary on the line if the ministry is found to have distorted the inflation rate. Yan Yong also fired back at Chawanon Interakumarasut, spokesman of the Democrat Party, after the latter announced in public that the government's list of commodity prices flew in the face of reality. The permanent secretary demanded that the Democrat spokesperson provide details and sources of difference in prices. He further urged opposition leader Aphisit Wechachiwa to vet the accuracy of his party's information before making it public and sack Chawanon, the party spokesperson. Meanwhile, following his visit to the Minburi Fresh Market, Deputy Commerce Minister Phum Sarapon claimed commodity prices were not high, stating that consumers could, in fact, handle such costs. He echoed that agricultural products, such as vegetables, are expensive due to the hot weather. On the contrary, consumers of the Minburi Fresh Market insisted that commodity prices had indeed risen sharply, a sentiment not motivated by emotions but facts. Vegetable vendors also said that they had to raise their products' prices given the higher wholesale costs. They all called on the government to remedy the ever-increasing cost of living. While visiting a fresh market in Nonthaburi province, Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra said that some commodity prices had been adjusted upward, while some had decreased. But she remained firm that the government will use all measures in its arsenal to alleviate the public's woes over the skyrocketing cost of living. Parliamentary debate has returned to the controversial subject on the Charter Amendment for the 11th day. Today, the Pheu Thai Party has set up a special team to defend arguments by the opposition if their protests are deemed not relevant to the issue. Meanwhile, 70 former executives of the former Thai Rak Thai Party are expected to return to politics as members of the Pheu Thai Party when the ban expires. Prampong Noparit, spokesperson from the Pheu Thai Party, revealed that the party has set up a special team chaired by Sunai Julapongsathorn to protest against the opposition when their arguments in the House meeting are not relevant to the topic under debate. He claims that the opposition may try to delay the conclusion on the Charter Amendment, and the party has also reminded Pheu Thai and coalition MPs to attend the parliamentary meeting on May the 8th, 9th and 11th to vote for the Charter Amendment. Meanwhile, Wishit Pangsi secretary of the 111 former executives of the dissolved Thai Rak Thai Party, said that the former executives will hold an official meeting on May the 16th to discuss the political direction when they return to politics. Wishit confirms that at least 70 of the 111 will register as a Pheu Thai Party member to officially support the government, but insists that their return will not trigger a conflict within Pheu Thai, despite some Pheu Thai members having expressed their concerns about a cabinet reshuffle if the banned politicians return. Political analysts expect that at least 6 to 7 previously banned politicians will return to ministerial posts once their 5-year ban ends at the end of this month. The Meteorological Department is warning 13 northern provinces to brace themselves for the possibility of flooding, some of which may be flash floods, between now and Wednesday. Rescue units in risky areas are now on red alert. เชียงใหม่เชียงรายลำพูนลำปางแพร่น่านอุตรดิตถ์สุโขทัยตากกำแพงเพชรพิษณุโลก and Phetchabun provinces are the 13 provinces the Met Office is warning to prepare for heavy rain and possible floods. Southwesterly winds and a low-pressure cell are causing torrential rainfall all over the country, but mainly in the north. Rescue units in the north remain on red alert. Some are already clearing up trees and houses damaged or destroyed by the strong winds. Roi Et and Sisaket provinces in the northeast are also experiencing heavy rains and damaged houses due to the heavy wind and rain. Prawit Jampanya, director of the Central Weather Prediction Office, says the heavy rains are normal as they follow a long period of drought. However, one scary factor is that the drought will have killed small trees and grass on the mountain areas, which would have been great barriers in slowing down flash floods. The north will face heavy rain until Wednesday, while the northeast will be experiencing massive amounts of rain through Thursday. The current soldiers under the control of General Nakhammoy have retreated from the deployment near the Thai border following orders from the Burmese military. Meanwhile, Deputy Prime Minister Chalerm Yubamrung is calling on Myanmar to extradite the general into Thai custody for drug trafficking. The Deputy PM also proposed that the time between a drug dealer being convicted and sentenced to death and the actual execution be cut down. Deputy Prime Minister Chalerm Yubamrung is proposing 2 draft amendments to the law which could require the Ministry of Justice to execute convicted drug dealers within 15 days after the court's sentencing. The current time frame is within 2 months after the court imposes the death penalty. DPM Chalerm insists that this will not affect the judicial process but will emphasize the government's tough stance on the war on drugs. Chalerm's next move will be to submit a letter requesting the Burmese government extradite General Nakhammoy to Thai authorities. The general has been added to Thailand's top 25 most wanted drug dealers. Meanwhile, current soldiers who are deployed along the Thai-Myanmar border following Thailand's move to list their leader on the drug dealers list have moved away from the border near Tak province in accordance with the Burmese military orders to do so. Trans-border trade is reported to have returned to almost normal, with only a minimal number of ethnic Karen rebels now posted at the 12 border checkpoints. The commander of the 4th Army Region will tomorrow meet a special envoy from the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, or OIC, to discuss solutions to the turmoil in the 3 southernmost provinces of Thailand. Meanwhile, the chairman of the Pattani Islamic Committee hopes that the OIC's visit will help foster understanding on the restless situation in the region. Syed Qasem El-Masri, Special Envoy to the Secretary General of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, or OIC, will arrive in Hat Yai in Songkhla Province tomorrow evening to attend a reception hosted by Aziz Pitak Kumpon, advisor to His Majesty the King on Islamic affairs. On Wednesday morning, the Special Envoy will attend a briefing on development efforts in the 3 southernmost provinces to be held by Colonel Twi Sotsong, Secretary General of the Southern Border Provinces Administration Center. He will then meet to exchange perspectives with regional Islamic religious leaders. Wedurame Mingji, chairman of the Pattani Islamic Committee, believes that the OIC's visit will foster a good understanding among all parties, which will help in solving the unrest. The chairman also hopes that the visit will help improve education for young Muslims in the area. Special Envoy Qasem El-Masri is scheduled to meet Lieutenant General Udom Chai Thammasaro-Rat, commander of the 4th Army Region, on Thursday morning. The commander is seeking to create an understanding with the Special Envoy over the unrest of the far south and the need to use politics ahead of military in solving the turmoil. This afternoon, trains heading to and coming from the south have resumed full service following a derailment in Nakhon Si Thammarat last Saturday. Railway officials have tested the condition of the rails in Rong Pibun district of Nakhon Si Thammarat after 18 bogies loaded with rubber derailed, damaging the rails. Train services heading south and southern trains coming to Bangkok were suspended on Saturday, but now the suspension has been lifted and services in both directions are returning to normal. Officials do not yet know the cause of the derailment and they are continuing their investigation. 5 people were working on a suspended platform outside the 68th floor of the Baiyoke Tower 2 in Patu Nam area of central Bangkok today when a sling rope snapped and 3 fell to their deaths. Police are initially presuming that excessive weight in the cradle caused the accident. The ropes supporting a platform that the workers were taking to the 68th floor to install the printed advertising on the exterior of the Baiyoke Tower 2, Thailand's tallest building, suddenly broke and caused 3 of the 5 workers of the QA company, Atiwat Kitipum Si Chuan, Kamthon Amon Wong, and Ritichai Chamyat, to fall from the 68th floor to the 20th, 18th, and 36th floors respectively. These 3 workers died instantly, while the other 2 workers managed to hang on but were injured. Initially, the police believed that the platform was not able to carry the total weight of 5 workers because the cable supporting part of the platform snapped and the workers hadn't put on safety equipment like helmets and safety harnesses. The police are preparing an investigation of the Kuwait company. And that's all the time we have for this evening news. I'll see you again tomorrow night. I'm Subhajon Klin Sawan. สวัสดีครับ